So this right here is the S25 Ultra, and I am Taco Tech Talk, and I remembered my password. So we're going to talk about the S25 Ultra today. So I've been using this phone for the last 6 to 7 months as my main device. I haven't been swapping devices at all. I still have my OnePlus 13 and 13R that I do plan to hopefully make a review video of each of those devices in 2026. A year later, but still we can talk about what it's like into 2026. And that's what I want to do with this S25 Ultra as well, because I haven't done a full review on this device yet, and the fact that I got to use this for my main device for the last 6 or 7 months has taught me a lot and showed me a lot about this device, but as well as just what it's like to stick with one phone for a while. You get very comfortable, I will say, but it also shows me a lot of the issues that I come across, in a singular device that I may not notice if I was to be jumping back and forth between other devices. So with that being said, we're going to be talking about my experience with the S25 Ultra after almost a year of owning it, but after 6 months of pretty much straight usage with the device, and whether or not you should be deciding to get this phone into 2026. So let's go ahead and tackle about it. So first, let's talk about this design. As you can see here, I do have a case on this phone. So most of the time, it's always wrapped up in this fiber-borne case that they actually sent out to me that I was meant to also review and just, do an overview about it and talk about it if I liked it. And I just stuck with it because it's a decently slim case, so it doesn't add too much weight, and it also doesn't take away from the form factor of the device as well. So overall design, I usually have it hidden, so I don't look at it all the time, but occasionally I do end up taking the case off, and I will say it is a very sleek looking device as far as, the maturity of the device. It's a very mature looking device. It's nothing fancy, nothing crazy or extra. It's just a sleek looking phone. Now, of course, they really haven't changed the whole style of it for a while. I think since the S21, I guess S22 Ultra, they've stayed very similar in terms of the camera design, the overall square, rectangle, bulky, boxy looking device. But this year, they did round out the corners a little bit. So they are a bit more comfortable to hold in your hand in terms of the corners digging into your palm. They also did make the sides a little bit more squared off while still maintaining a bit of a round curvature on the edges, so that's not sharp at all. It's actually fairly comfortable to hold without a case, and grippy too because of those flatter sides. But it also does initially feel like a little bit thicker and looks a little bit thicker, even though it is actually slightly thinner. It's just the fact that it's those flat sides that gives you that illusion that it is a little bit thicker versus the previous phones were curved, so it looked slimmer initially. But those phones also were a bit slippier and also were not easy to grip because of the fact that they were so thin on the edge on the sides. After using it for 6 months, I do have a little bit of damage on the phone as well. I think it's either a small crack or a deep cut or scratch on the back corner of my device. You can barely see it, but I got this pretty early on. I think it was maybe like 2-3 months into having the device, I noticed it. And then I have like one little small chip or dent somewhere, but otherwise the phone itself has been holding up just fine. I am also using a screen protector on the front, so even though it has that Corning Gorilla Glass Armor 2, I believe is what it's called, with that anti-reflective screen, I end up putting a plastic screen protector on it that is one of the Samsung ones that also has that anti-reflective coating on it, so I don't lose out on that feature. I also do wish that they introduced the magnets in the back with this lineup. I think they're doing to do that with the next lineup of the S26, but it would have been nice if they would have added that in this lineup, because that was when it was early on, it was being introduced. Maybe it was a little too early for them to be able to adopt it in, but it would still have been nice. But luckily the case that I use, like I said, the fiber-borne case does have a magnet on it, so I am able to use accessories such as this pop socket, which I find very useful to use with this phone, mainly because I've recently found that this phone is huge. Like, maybe I'm just used to jumping around between different devices that I don't get too much fatigue when I'm using a big phone, but after using it for 6-7 months, I felt really fatigued using this phone. So after a while, I was getting sick of holding on to this phone, and I was almost really tempted to switch to like a flip phone, because I was like, this is too big. Especially when you go out running, I want to carry my phone sometimes to either get those steps for Pokemon Go or listen to a YouTube video or music that I can't get on my watch easily. This is definitely personal preference and definitely subjective on me that I would wish it was smaller. Like I wish that they introduced these features that the Ultra has onto the smaller devices like the cameras, the bigger battery, etc. Because of the overall design, it's pretty big. And you do have your volume rocker and power button on the right hand side. No issues nowadays in terms of the button clicking. It does feel pretty good in premium, and the USB-C port at the bottom has little to minor. I think that might be designed, but it looks initially like it's a bit scuffed out with the titanium being a bit lighter looking, but it might be by design. I don't remember what it looked like when I first got it. And then you also have dual firing speakers, which overall sound pretty good. So when you're listening to music or listening to videos, they get really loud. Only thing is that the fact that I wish they had a little bit more bass to them, but I mean, it is a small phone, so it's not like you can expect like speaker-like, actual speaker-like quality, you know? Now, as far as the S Pen, I really do not use it. There's times when I wish it had that Bluetooth functionality so I could use it as a shutter button, but unfortunately they don't remove the Bluetooth functionality, and even then I didn't use it much before, and now I rarely use it. Maybe once or twice where I actually used it to draw and just have fun and take up time to do something in the Notes app. But otherwise, I'll maybe take it out once in a while to play with it as a fidget toy, and then I put it back away. So S Pen is not the most useful tool for me, but if it's something you live by, then of course you do have that feature, the S Pen, on the S25 Ultra. As far as biometrics, you do have facial recognition on the front and then the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor underneath the display. I don't remember the last time they upgraded and updated these biometrics. I think the fingerprint sensor might have been a couple years ago. It's still pretty reliable. There's a couple times where I ran into an issue where for some reason, sometimes one of my specific fingers wasn't being registered. And so even though I kept using it and I've used it in the past, like used it like that same day, and it was having no issues, but then out of nowhere it just wasn't reading my one finger, one of my thumbs, and then I switched to the other thumb and it works just fine. I'll turn the device off, turn it back on, and it's fine with my other finger. So I'm not sure what happens there. Maybe it glitches out, but it rarely happens, but it has happened on multiple occasions. But of course, you have that facial recognition that can also back you up if the fingerprint sensor doesn't work. I will say the facial recognition only works best in normal lighting conditions or well-lit lighting conditions, and sometimes in low light conditions. In very dark environments, you may have issues with it recognizing you, and also at like different angles. It's gotten pretty good, but it's not the most secure out there. In terms of haptics, I think they're all right. They're not the best out there, in my opinion. I think that goes with Google and OnePlus, although I heard that the OnePlus 15 doesn't have great haptics compared to the OnePlus 13, but I know the 13 has pretty good haptics, and the 13R, not so much. But the S25 Ultra itself, they're good. They're definitely decent. I would personally keep them on the lower end, just so they're not super aggressive, because the more aggressive they are, the worse they feel for me, at least on the S25 Ultra. But for the most part, in-app vibrations and haptics like Pokemon Go or Duolingo, they really take advantage of the haptic system in here, and it feels really nice. And for typing and texting, again, I like it low. So I do like that. And I did notice that sometimes the Google keyboard doesn't use the haptic settings that you have set up for the system as a whole. You sometimes have to go into the keyboard app itself and then change the haptic vibration sensitivity there. It's a little bit annoying because you'll be confused, because sometimes I feel like it does read the system settings and it switches to those, but then sometimes it switches to the keyboard settings. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm not sure if it's just me or if it's a placebo thing, but I have felt like sometimes my keyboard gets more aggressive sometimes, and then something goes back to how I have it set for the system. So it could be a me thing, it could be a real thing, but just something that I noticed. And of course, I do just gotta slightly mention the service and phone quality here. I do use Visible, which is a Verizon-based carrier, and for the most part, I've had little to no issues. I get 4G LTE up to 5G, sometimes ultra wideband, depending on where I'm at. And for the most part, I've never had an issue with data and speeds being bad. Phone calls are pretty good as well. I will sometimes note that there's occasions where I felt like there's like just choppiness and different drops. Like it just random scenarios where the person I'm talking to, like my girlfriend, will sometimes just be cutting in and out. I'm not sure if that's a phone thing, a carrier thing, or if that's on their end. I'm not entirely sure. It's the first time this year that I'm doing a lot of phone calls, so that's when I'm noticing it. So it could be just something that I've just never noticed because I've rarely done phone calls for an extended period of time and a lot of time. So it could be something that is new because of the fact that I'm just now doing it, or it could be an issue with one of those three things: the phone, the carrier, or my partner's phone. But either way, just wanted to point it out. Now, as far as this display, you're getting a 1440p 6.8-inch diagonal display, AMOLED, LTPO with 1 Hz up to 120 Hz variable refresh rate. It's one of the best displays you can get out there, and it's basically edge to edge. I think the bezels are all the same size now, so there's no thicker chin anymore, no thicker forehead or thicker sides. It's pretty much the best display you can get out there, I think, or one of the best displays you can get out there. And overall, it's great for just scrolling around, watching content on YouTube, for watching movies, watching reels, getting lost in all those different mindless, brain-numbing content. But basically, it's a fantastic display for whatever you are doing, and you can tweak it a little bit, setting it between natural and vibrant. Personally, I keep mine in natural, and even in natural, it looks fairly vibrant. So overall, I think the quality itself of the display is fantastic, and the smoothness of it is also really good. Never really have any issues with dropped frame rates and stuff like that. And additionally, it can get up to a peak brightness of 2600. I think that's pretty low in terms of numbers, like based off the industry and what phone manufacturers are doing now. But typically, I think sustained is pretty good overall, because when I'm taking this outside in a bright sun environment, it gets plenty bright. Now, it doesn't last forever, but it still lasts long enough for me to quickly check maybe maps, or check the music that I'm playing, or sometimes Pokemon Go will get pretty bright when I'm playing outdoors. So overall, I would say display quality is fantastic. But one thing I do want to say though is, what the heck happened to the under display camera technology? Why did we give up on that? Samsung, you were on a roll. Well, I guess I wouldn't say on a roll, because every year was the same thing with the Z Fold, but I would love for someday that technology to be advanced so that we can have a seamless display without a camera cutout. It's small, minor, it doesn't really get in the way right now, but I would love to see that innovation to have a just clean, overall seamless display. Regardless though, it's still a fantastic viewing experience, even with a little camera cutout. And sometimes videos have black bars that the camera doesn't even get in the way, so it's fine unless you zoom in. But additionally, this display is now flat, so you can easily install any screen protector now, including glass ones or plastic ones, whatever you want. No more of those little film ones because of the curved display. That was always an annoyance. I love that it went from flat displays to curved, now back to flat, because people want flat now, and I'm sure someday we'll go back to curved phones, because we gotta innovate somehow, and sometimes innovating means going back to what you had before. But either way, a flat display is nice because of the screen protector being able to be installed much easier. Now, as far as performance, you're getting what was the best Snapdragon chip out there, that being the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. I believe, with 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM, and then either 256 as your base up to a terabyte of storage, which is UFS 4.0 if I'm not mistaken, so I think the fastest you can get. I have the 512 model, so just in the middle of the storage base, and overall, I mean, performance is as good as it gets. I don't think I've ever had an issue in terms of performance. If anything, it's mostly some app optimization that I run into, where it's issues where randomly the app crashes, the software itself sometimes can be buggy, but performance-wise, I think I've maybe had to restart once or twice, and that was maybe, again, based off just software optimization and bugs. So for me, my everyday experience or everyday apps are just browsing Reddit, Instagram, going on Facebook Marketplace, using Teams, using YouTube, music with YouTube Music or Spotify in the past. And then mainly I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Go, and again, never had an issue with performance there either. I'm able to set it to the advanced graphics, as well as setting it to the device's max frame rate, that being 120 Hz, so it runs really smoothly on here as well. It does drain the battery a good bit, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but otherwise the experience overall on this device is fabulous. Now let's talk about software. I mentioned that I did experience some bugs. It is running Android 16 and One UI 8.0, which is the latest version. And there's a couple times where there's just weird things that happen. So overall though, I really do like the different features and customization, personalization, and settings you have available to customize the device. Some design choices are questionable and whatnot, but like otherwise, I would say it's a lot of fun to be able to customize your phone in certain ways. Starting with the lock screen, they've made it more customizable with different clock styles. I've added a handful since I've last started using it, and they've also added different effects that are, some of them are, I think, are AI based. AI, whatever it may be, but either way, do give different options. I do wish they had more options in terms of widgets, and also as far as the now brief, or not now, the now brief, and also the now bar, I think is what it's called. But basically, it's all first-party stuff, all Samsung stuff. There's rarely any third-party apps that I personally have experienced that work with the now bar and also with the widgets. So I wish there was more additional widgets for this, because even I think iOS has a handful of third-party widgets or third-party apps that are participating in it. But otherwise, it's one of those things that I can see them just dropping in the future because no developers are really adopting it. And again, this may be something developers have to do, right? But Samsung has to incentivize somehow, like make it more incentivizing for them to want to do that. But either way, you have those options and features. Now brief, I barely use, because one of the biggest things I thought was going to be cool was the fact that it worked with YouTube, but it always recommends videos that are like weeks old or videos that I've actually already watched, and it just kind of frustrates me. I'm just like, what's the point of even looking at it? Because it tells me the weather, tells me my score and my sleep time and whatnot, my energy score, but I can just do that myself if I wanted to. So not the most useful thing for me. I do like in the home screen that you have the ability to expand your folders. So basically, this is a feature taken straight from Kxnt OS, I think, or wherever it originated from. At least I know it originated from Kxnt OS for me personally. But basically, it makes your folder larger, and you can have your apps accessible directly from that expanded folder without having to open the folder first and then click your apps. It just makes it a little bit more easier to access more apps and put more apps on your home screen without having to make the grid size smaller. So I think it's cool. It also adds a cool way to try to customize and organize your home screen as well. That's the major only thing I noticed though in the home screen in terms of features. You can see though that I am using different app icons, and that's from the Play Store. I think it's called Verticons that I use, and I uploaded it into the theme park and then uploaded it into the device itself using GoodLock. And speaking of GoodLock, I also used it to remove the icon names so that on the home screen, it's just your app icon. I think it looks pretty clean in my opinion, so that's why I personally use it. Another big redesign that they've been slowly changing throughout the different phases of Android is the notifications and quick settings. Now everything is separated. Well, it can be separated between just notifications and then just your quick settings, just like iOS. But personally, I don't like it. I prefer to have it like it was before. So luckily they still allow you to do that to keep it together. So I have my notifications and then my first couple of quick settings options at the top with the slider for the brightness. Personally, I just like that. And I also like that you can just swipe down from anywhere on the screen and don't have to worry about swiping back and forth. Personal preference for sure, but that's just what I like. I will say though, once you swipe the whole way down to your quick settings, it looks kind of messy to me. I'm not a huge fan of how it's set up. Some people may think it looks cleaner. For me, it looks kind of messy. Like, for example, I don't like that they force you to have those main big quick settings like your nearby devices, your quick view or nearby view, whatever it's called, your modes. If I wanted those as big ones, let me add them, sure. Like give me an edit icon that you have and have a plus option to then add those options and then let me expand them if I want them big. But don't force it on me. I don't want those to be there. They're kind of a waste of space in my opinion. I would rather have those in the smaller quick setting options that takes up in a little small folder looking like thing. But you know, don't force things on me. Give me the options to customize it how I want. And then the app screen, when you swipe up to see your app library, when you set it to sort in alphabetical order, it's now going to show it in a vertical screen, which makes sense. I think it's easier to navigate if everything's vertical when it's in alphabetical order versus swiping back and forth horizontally, because then you can just grab the bar and just slide directly to the alphabet letter that you're looking for. Makes sense. Cool. But personally, I like to keep it in custom order, which then puts it back into the horizontal scroll, which then allows you to then, customize each screen to be like its own big folder. So for example, for me, I have my first folder being all like the basic apps, like calendar, messages, all that kind of stuff. And then I swipe over, I see my entertainment stuff, music, video streaming, shopping, etc. And then I have a folder just for productivity and a folder just for my 9-to-5 job. So that's pretty convenient to me, but of course everyone would like to customize it their own way, and I do think that it's nice that they give you both options. I will say that it's still pretty nice that when you're in the alphabetical order, you can still create folders within that vertical app library, because if they didn't, I think I would be kind of annoyed, but still kind of cool that they give you both options now. Now, something I do want to mention that I experience a lot in terms of bugs is when you're in the Recents app, for some reason, there's times where it doesn't show your last recent apps that you just opened up. So for example, I play a lot of Pokemon Go. Sometimes Pokemon Go is really buggy and crashes a lot and freezes a lot, and you just have to force close it sometimes and restart the app. So I go to my Recents app to close it out and open it up again, but it's not there. I open it up and it's just gone. I don't know why it doesn't always show up there. It does, however, show up in your, recommendations of apps to open because you had it recently opened, but it doesn't show up as one that you recently had open. I don't know why it does this. And you can see in the animation that when you swipe to your Recents app, the recent app that you had open, the most recent one, goes and shifts away to the right-hand side and it just disappears and you can't get to it. I don't know why it does it. And then on top of that, when you do close all, it doesn't include it in the close all. It still leaves it open. So when I go back to the app, it's still where it was last time. And it's just so frustrating. But it's not just Pokemon Go. That's just one I noticed the most and the most frustrating one because of how buggy the app is sometimes. But it's happened for like basic apps like Amazon, the calculator, Best Buy. It's just random. I don't know why it does it, if it's a bug or if it's a feature. It's definitely not a feature for me because it's really annoying. But just wanted to point that out. Now, in terms of the artificial intelligence you have available on the S25 Ultra, there's some cool things in there, but really I don't use them. I just can't wait for AI to stop being the buzz thing, like the main thing that people want to sell you on, because I just want cool features, like hardware features, like some software stuff, but not AI. AI, I don't really care for because half the time it's not the most useful thing. Sometimes it is, I will say. It can be candy like Gemini, but not the Samsung AI that they're doing here, in my personal opinion. So I've used the photo thing where you can remove an object and it removes it and it fills it in with object awareness and makes it look better. It did work for one photo where I took a photo and there was a water bottle that got in the way and I was able to remove it. It did look pretty good. It also slightly tweaked the photo a little bit in terms of the lighting. It made it a little bit brighter, which it kind of needed. But overall, I don't really use the AI, so I won't talk about it much because that's the only time I ever did use it. But what I will talk about is the Samsung ecosystem, because I will say it's one of the few things that's keeping me on the S25 Ultra right now because of how it works with my other devices, mainly that being my Samsung Galaxy Watch 7. I just love that whenever you set the mode to sleep mode or work mode, it works on both. So you can toggle it on one and it toggles on the other as well. So it's convenient for me. That's why I stick with it. Same thing with like phone calls and messages. Nowadays, you can use Google Messages and you can pretty much sync any app or any device with your tablets, because I have the Samsung tablets and sometimes calls can go through there and I'll answer on the tablet instead, or it just allows me to be notified that there's a call coming through. But messages, you can just use Google Messages and connect via the QR code and connect via the Google Messages app. Ecosystem-wise, like I said, it's really just a watch keeping me on, and as well as my earbuds, my Samsung earbuds. I stay connected to those a lot. I like the Galaxy Buds Pro 3. I've been using those a lot, so I've been mainly using my Samsung device with it. So it's small things that the ecosystem is keeping me together with. Also, I have these Galaxy tags that allow me to find my keys in my backpack in the case that I lose them. And if I'm not on a Samsung device, then I can't track them, which is kind of annoying. I wish that Samsung would expand it and open it up and work with all of Android, not just with Samsung devices. But it is what it is. They gotta try and get you to stay, which is what they're doing to me right now. Overall, that's why I'm still staying on the Samsung device right now. I will end up switching after I make this video to my OnePlus device, and I'm gonna miss some of those features, but it's not the end of the world. It's definitely first world problems for me. But something I do want to mention that kind of carries over here is the Samsung ecosystem stuff. There's Samsung apps installed on here, which honestly does feel a little bit like bloatware. At first, I was like, it is what it is. Samsung has their own versions of apps, but it does get annoying because you have the Samsung Messages, you have the Google Gallery and the Google Photos, and then the Samsung Gallery. You have the Samsung Calculator, but you can also install the Google Calculator. And so I just wish that you could uninstall the Samsung apps. They only allow you to disable it. And there's even some Samsung or some Google apps that also can only be disabled. You can't uninstall them. So I just wish that they would merge and work together to create one good app experience instead of having Samsung apps here, Google apps there, and then having duplicates of the same type of app. So I wish it was all mixed in together. But as far as software support, you will still be getting 6 more years. It's been a year now, so 6 more years of software updates on the S25 Ultra is really good. It's awesome that a lot of devices or a lot of phone manufacturers are now supporting their phones for a longer time, because theoretically these phones should last you for many, many years to come. Now, as far as the camera, I'm going to record this using the actual phone itself. So this is the S25 Ultra recording right now using its own built-in microphones and using the actual cameras. And I'm also not using my studio setup. So I'm actually filming this ahead of time before I actually film the full video itself. So I want to just talk about the camera, do with you guys just like a normal person would. And also just using the camera itself in normal lighting conditions. I am using this window here with natural lighting to light me. So this is what it would potentially look like. Overall, I would say in good conditions, as you can see here in normal lighting, decent lighting during the daytime, it looks pretty good. You can see good sharpness, and you can also do autofocus. So if I put this stuff in front of it, that's my tree here, this ornament, you can see it's focused on it, and I am out of focus now. If I can move it back to me, it'll focus back on me. So it has autofocus, which is really nice, and the fact that you can also put objects in front of you kind of makes it pretty cool in terms of perspective and the depth of field for certain objects and scenarios that you want to do. Now, as far as lighting conditions, when you get darker, it does get quite noisy. And I also noticed that I had a setting turned on that it auto fluctuates the frames per second depending on the lighting to try to get the video to be a little bit brighter. So it also potentially may mess with the frames per second. But on top of that, it's just overall not the biggest sensor. So at nighttime, it does struggle, and also it definitely struggles in pitch black scenarios, as well as when you're just in low light conditions. You get a lot of noise, a lot of blurriness, and also when you're walking and you're taking steps, you can see the bounce, you can see jitteriness of the video itself when you're walking about. Photos are a similar story. So even with me and my girlfriend, you still get very natural skin colors, and as well as overall good dynamic range. Like it's pretty crazy how good it is in terms of being able to light the environment behind you as well as your foreground, your face. It does a pretty good job. There's some times where it does, miss it, but for the most part, I think it does a pretty good job. And then a similar story, once the conditions in terms of lighting go down, it takes a little longer to take the photo. So if there's a lot of movement, you're gonna see that blur in the photo itself. But overall, the front-facing camera, I use it sparingly, but it does come in handy, and I would say it's pretty reliable overall. Maybe it's not the best front-facing camera out there in any smartphone, but it's definitely not the worst. So I would say it's good. It's very good for vlogging. It's very good for the casual photos. Nothing professional, just plain old capturing memories, capturing events and stuff. So overall for me, it's more than passable. And the microphones, I will say the microphones I think are a little meh, just because they don't capture all the audio all the time. They can sound muffled. I am using a case, so that may be why it also sounds muffled here and there. For the most part, it can get the job done, and I could use an external microphone if I wanted to. Now, talking about the back cameras, this is where the back cameras definitely get a little bit better. So you have your ultra wide, your wide, and your two telephotos, that being the 3x and then the 5x. So before with the S24 Ultra, it was a 10x and then a 3x. So now they have that 3x, 5x, which is, I think, similar to the iPhone now. So basically, you get a very versatile system, and I would say similar story compared to the front facing to the rear facing cameras, where when you're in the ultra wide, when you're in the telephotos, that's where they're not the most versatile or the best when it comes to low light conditions. The main is probably the best one when it comes to low light conditions, but overall in regular lighting conditions, you're going to be getting a, again, very versatile system. I would say, again, the coloring here and the dynamic range is really impressive because, once again, I've noticed that it'll do an amazing job of lighting the foreground, lighting the background, and it overall looks like a really good photo, a photo that really doesn't take much to or need any kind of editing after the fact. You could just take the photo, take the video, and you'll be satisfied with what you get. It doesn't also look too natural while also not looking too vibrant. I know in the past Samsung has made their phones look a little too vibrant for my liking, but nowadays they've tuned it down a little bit and it overall looks pretty good in my personal opinion. Now, in terms of audio, you're still listening to the audio from the front facing or when it's in front facing mode, and I also just recently turned off the mode where it records audio based on your zoom level. So the further you zoom in, the more focused it is on the audio that's captured in the frame. For example, if you're at a concert or at a sports stadium or whatever, you're gonna notice that when you're in ultra wide or wide, it's gonna sound like there's audio, it's capturing all of the audio around you. So it basically sounds like you're right there, but as you zoom in, it's going to focus more on the music or on the actual event that's happening. So at concerts, the music itself gets a lot louder in the video and it starts to block out any audio around you. So like maybe me speaking or other people speaking around you, it will actually kind of block that out. Sometimes it does that, sometimes it doesn't. And it also can get annoying. So if you're trying to narrate while you're recording, you just want to zoom in to show something, but you're still talking to the camera, it may block out your voice. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, and something I noticed that happened to me when I was just trying to record some vlogs. It ended up I accidentally ended up blocking out my voice because I had that feature turned on. I just now turned it off so that it doesn't happen to me anymore, because I think most of the time I just want the audio to capture, audio that's right next to me, like right around me. I don't need it to mess with it itself. The phone doesn't need to do that. I could just, if I wanted to, I guess I could take it to post and do something with it. But another thing too, for video, just because I use the phone a lot for video, is when you're switching between those different lenses, those different zoom levels, you're not going to notice a huge shift in the color, which is great, because sometimes in previous devices, I would notice a lot of shift in the color and quality. Quality-wise, overall, it's pretty good, but shifting, though, can be a little bit better. It's not the smoothest, so I wish it was a little smoother, but overall, not terrible. Another thing you can do is you can actually flip between the front-facing camera and the rear-facing cameras all while recording. So you don't have to stop it and then start recording again. But I do hope that maybe they can fix or improve in future phones, or even in an update potentially. I don't know if it has to do with performance or the fact that maybe the rear camera isn't recording right now or the front facing recording at the same time. But basically, when you switch, there is a delay. It can take like a second or two for it to actually switch over and start using the other camera. So for example, if I make a switch right now, you notice a little bit of a hiccup there. So I'm gonna actually keep talking right now, and you're gonna notice that it's going to cut out. So this is my Christmas, or we put it up about 2 weeks ago. There may have been a little bit delay there as I was saying that sentence. So something there just to keep in mind. Still very cool that you can switch between the two different cameras while you're recording, but there is a small delay there that can mean that you may miss a second or two of the moment that you're recording. Overall though, the cameras I would say are very good. Overall, very good versatile system in terms of the photos, the videos that you take. And there's also a bunch of other pro features, so like log, pro recording, pro video, all that kind of stuff, and 8K, but I personally did not use any of that. I just personally stuck to the 4K and just the basic modes, but they're definitely there if you want them. Now let's talk about battery life. And honestly, this is probably the most disappointing battery life experience I've had on any device in a little while. Maybe because I've been using it for 6 to 7 months and it's really shown me what battery life can be like when you're using one device. But basically, My battery experience fluctuates day by day. Some days I get as little as 8 hours of battery life with like 4 to 3 hours of screen on time. Some days I get maybe 22 hours of battery life. And I feel like the apps I use don't fluctuate like crazy every single day. So the optimization is horrible if that's the case, because it's just not really optimizing to have a balanced experience. It's always different every day. Some days I unplug and unplug it in before I even get off work. Some days I unplug and I don't have to plug in until the next morning. So yeah, it can be really frustrating with the battery life here because I just never know. And sometimes the battery drains so fast when you get down to like 15%. I will say Pokemon Go is a big battery drainer, so maybe because that's running not only when I'm opening it and using it, but also in the background with Adventure Sync and whatnot, so that also could be a culprit there. So yeah, I will say battery life on here has been really disappointing personally because I expected more. On top of that, technology for the batteries on phones have gotten a lot better, at least since this came out, not only in the battery capacity, but also in charging speed. So silicone batteries now can get up to like 7,000 milliamp hours, and then they can charge faster up to like 30 minutes for a full charge, versus this is falling behind year by year. So I did see that the S26 might have, it's rumored to have like 65 watt fast charging, but the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So cool, finally improving the speeds, but it doesn't make a huge difference if it's not big enough to last you longer. But at least I guess that means that when you do die, you can charge up a little bit faster. But either way, I do think that battery is the worst experience I've had in a while, and really just puts this phone down a little bit more in terms of like my recommendations, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. On top of that, you do have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, but I've never used it. I use mainly the wire charging with 45 watts. It takes about a little over an hour, but it can charge up in like 30 minutes in terms of getting it to like 70%, which theoretically should be enough to get you through the day, but sometimes, you know, like I said, battery drains pretty quick sometimes, so 70% sometimes may not be enough for me, and I do sometimes have to carry a battery bank with me to top this off in the case that I am like poke hunting for an hour or two. So overall, would I recommend the S25 Ultra going into 2026? Maybe. And the reason I say maybe is because of that battery life experience. I know I just went into a full rant about it, so I'm not going to go too crazy about it again and hit on it and hammer it even more. But still, that's the only thing that's holding me back from saying, yeah, go out and get it, because it just hurts knowing that there's just like so much better technology out there for the battery. And my battery life experience was pretty bad that I'm like, I wish this had better battery tech and a better battery life experience. And then, yeah, I would definitely say, go out and get it. All rounded device. Still a good device, a great device in all other aspects, from the performance, the display, the cameras, and just, you know, the functionality of it. But it's just that battery life. It's such a big pillar in a device that it's hard for me to want to go out and say, you know, get the S25 Ultra, even in 2026, best device you can get out there. Because nah, probably not in terms of the hardware that it's using right now, because it's just falling behind a little bit in the competition. Even the camera lenses, I feel like they could improve a little bit because of the hardware. It's like not the most up to date, I think. But anyway, that's just my personal thoughts. Not my first choice going into 2026. And it's definitely not going to be the phone I'm going to actually be using starting in 2026, because I'm going to switch over to my OnePlus 13. I still want to do a review on that one. Same thing with the OnePlus 13R. And I also have a Pixel 9 Pro Fold in the drawer as well that I bought literally a year ago, because I meant to do a review on it before all these phones came out, but I just never got around to it. So yeah, with that being said, thank you all for watching and for sticking around. I know I've been gone for a while, and I hope to be back at a regular schedule. Maybe not super regular, just more frequent uploads, you know, maybe hopefully every other month or monthly potentially, or maybe bi-weekly. I don't know, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and get back out there with these videos because I enjoy it. You know, I want to inform you guys, and even though I'll be late to the competition with the YouTube and stuff, it's still fun. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you guys thought of the S25 Ultra. Hope you guys had also a good year and a good holiday season. So yeah, thank you all, and peace.